Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when I got the order paper and a copy of the amendment on Thursday or Friday, it looked very simple to me. It looked very simple to me, but I had to look deeper to find out what was there. Knowing the government has a tendency sometimes to want to kill a rat, they burn a house. I wanted to find out what was, when they want to kill a rat, they burn a house. I wanted to find out what really was there. And I found out a few things, Mr. Speaker. I found out for one, that a civil servant cannot be transferred from the government service to the private sector. You have to be seconded. A civil servant, I say it again, cannot be transferred or cannot be taken away, transferred from the civil service to the private sector. They have to be seconded. That's the first thing I found out. So, I ask a question. Is it because the hospital is going to be privatized? Just a question. Because a civil servant cannot come from, like supposing there is a doctor or a nurse, etc. You cannot transfer him or her from the hospital to the private sector. You have to second them. First question. The second question I want to ask, Mr. Speaker, is what will happen to the ward maids and the porters and the people who are not establishment workers? My information tells me that non-established workers cannot be either seconded or transferred if you're non-established. So if you are a maid, or you are porter, or you are somebody in that category of work, you can neither be transferred nor seconded. So you are at the mercy of the political directorate. And by the way, I understand recruitment has already started to take place. So you find yourself, the ward maids and the porters in the hospital will now be at the mercy of the government. I stand corrected if I have to be. I repeat, non-established workers can neither be seconded nor transferred. Thirdly, I want to ask another question. When the workers are seconded from one entity to another, their pension rights are preserved. I understand that, but is the security of tenure also guaranteed? And thirdly, I want to ask a question as to what is the state of the transition of the hospital? Because I know for a fact that this government has employed an Indian consultancy firm. This government has contracted an Indian consultancy firm, and I can make it a document house if you want. The board of directors of the Millennium Heights Medical Complex has contracted the services of consultants. And the consultants are Narayana, Narayana, Hrudayalaya Limited of India, to assist in the transitioning from the Victoria Hospital to the Owen King European Union. The consultancy is with respect to the provision of advisory and technical service to the board of directors of the Millennium Heights Medical Complex with the aim of completing the transition of services from Victoria Hospital to the Owen King European Hospital. The first step of the consultancy will involve...
Honorable Leader of the Opposition, please identify the document that you're reading from. Just identify the document.
The document is a memo to the heads of departments and the staff of the Department of Wellness, from the permanent secretary, and it's a consultancy that the government has contracted. It's not a contract the government is in the process of tendering. They have awarded the contract to a firm in India. And I will see if it's a firm in India, it's an Indian consultancy firm to provide consulting services. And I note that local people had already been contracted to deal with the transitioning of Victoria Hospital. Was that wrong? Was the transition of Victoria Hospital, was the process not correct? Led by Dr. Stephen King. A commissioning board had already been formed. But this government is contracting another set of people, foreigners. Another set of foreigners. And I note the advice by the World Bank that you must be careful in the employment of consultants who are not from the country. So you need to get another set of consultants. I suspect they are from India because it is said of India. These people understand better the transitioning of Victoria Hospital to the OKU than local consultants led by Dr. Stephen King. That is the respect we have for local consultants, and that's the respect we have for local people. The local people, the transitioning that was done, the work that was done by the local consultants is not adequate. But I suspect, again, the point I made, that the burning a house to kill a rat, that is the first step. The first step. Because all of a sudden, the privatization of the hospital has disappeared. So the Cayman Islands are no longer there. Health City Cayman is no longer there. All of a sudden, we were told at some point that the hospital can't run on its own. We have no money to run it. We need to make it a tourist-based hospital. Now that has disappeared, and now we have, first of all, we are preparing the ground.
Leader of the opposition, don't take this debate beyond what it ought to be this morning. I'm asking you to just note what we are debating. Because if I allow you to go beyond, I will have to balance it by allowing the government side to go beyond. Let's keep this debate as tight and neat as possible, and let's move on. Continue, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I note your guidance, and I will follow. But I just want to make the point, Mr. Speaker, that this amendment is preparing the ground to remove transferring and preparing the ground for secondment. So if the hospital becomes a private entity, it's going to be easier or easy to take civil servants, and that to take civil servants, doctors, nurses, and second them to the new entity instead of transferring them, as is the case if the hospital was a public sector hospital. Regarding the pension rights, I have no problems with that. And I further want to say that non-established workers cannot be seconded or transferred. So I want to find out what will be the plight of the non-established workers, knowing the government likes to make people cry. And I would like to find out what is the plight of these porters and these non-established workers who presently work at the hospital. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.